What's going on, fam? How is everybody doing? I know I always say it's going to be a short show, and then it don't, because I talk a lot. But not today. Today I am going to make it shorter because I realize a lot of people have had a lot of stuff to talk about, and they said, Yvette, you said you was going to keep it short, and then you didn't take but 5 calls or 8. We was waiting in the queue. And you're right. You ain't lied that time. You probably lied yesterday or last night, but you didn't lie that one time. But I'm on to you. Anyway, fam, so we're going to try to make it shorter. When you do call in, though, I want to try to get a pulse. To get a pulse of ADOS. So when you do call in, I'm going to have to get a little harsher. I might have to cut some people off. We got to get to the point. You know, if you have a story to tell, you tell that story. You stay in there. You stay with it. But don't stay too long. But I'm going to try to get in and out because, today isn't really necessarily a data day. It's kind of a teachable day, at least in my mind. It's about a lot of stuff, but I'm going to talk about one stuff. But anyway, before we even get to that, family, please do not forget the 30th. Really, really close. That's what, the 22nd? The 30th. That's on a Thursday. We're talking about next week. We are going to be reading January the 30th. We are going to be reading They Were Her Property. We're having the conversation. So book club is coming up. Have your highlighted passages ready to go. Because we're going to have the conversation. Hit that like button for me if you have not done that already. Please hit subscribe if you have not done that already. If you want to donate, as always, go to donatebrown.com or patreon.com/WattCarnell or ADOS merch to get a shirt or whatever. Do whatever you want to do. But you can hit that subscribe button for free. You can hit that bell and get notifications for no money. So much stuff, so many ways to help the show and what we do and our endeavors without even paying any monies. Okay, can't say, well, what you do? No money is required for everything we do. Just please do that, and please show up for the book club. Read. We're anchored in political education, all of that stuff. So just ask that you do that. I don't think it's hard. So I wanna get to something really quickly. Where's my thing? We're having a lot of conversations. We're having a lot of conversations right now. And the conversations that we're having are very different than the conversations that mainstream media is having, right? So they're talking about, the impeachment. And we're talking about parchment. And we would like for that to get more attention. I put the ABC News clips up last time. But we would like for that to be getting more attention, but it's not. Even amongst our own people. And you have to try to figure out exactly what goes on in the minds of us. Put the data down for a second. We've anchored that whole thing. What goes on in the minds of us? Because when you look at what is happening right now in our communities, there's a lot going on that affects us that we're not talking about. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. And I'm going to bring it back because there's a lot that we don't understand. So I'm going to talk about this NPR. Supreme Court allows Flint water lawsuits to move forward. Officials not immune. That's what they said they were. We're immune. You can't sue. You can't. But before I get to that, let me just say something. We talk a lot about the executive branch. Because that's courts. What was up there? Supreme Court allows Flint water lawsuits to move forward. We're talking about courts. We don't talk a lot about the judiciary here. We talked about it in terms of Byron Allen's Supreme Court case, but we didn't talk about it in terms of being one of the levers of power. We talked about what that civil rights case, we're talking about a Reconstruction era case meant, and we talked about that in the specificity of our group, but we did not talk about, and we don't usually talk about as much the courts. We talk about legislation, in terms of them enacting policy, and we talk about the executive branch. We don't normally hit on courts, right? But that's another level of what government does and the importance of government. And so I'm going to bring that article back up in a minute, but I think we have to really talk about, and we're going to get into it, but we have to talk about why we don't understand the levers of government and how they're pulled, and how they're usually pulled against us. And how there's a sort of reset mentality. Well, what are you talking about, Yvette? A reset mentality? Let me tell you what I'm talking about, and then we'll get back to it. We have made the case about black wealth being virtually non-existent for how long? How long, family? Since like late 2016? Something will happen. And then everybody will come over to the ADOS side. Yeah, you're right. We got to do something about this. This ain't right. And 1% of the loans through SBA and no reparations. And you'll skip it. I'm with Yvette. But somehow, within all of that, at some point, you will hit the reset button. And you will say to yourself, or you will say to me, well, Yvette, I understand what you're saying, or I understand what you're trying to say about us not having any wealth. But I read into Sylvester Thomas on the way to the haberdashery. Sylvester said that he used 2 nickels, some bubble gum, and some fish twine to start a business, and he did it 10 years ago and is thriving. Now, what do you have to say to Sylvester? So all this data was uprooted by you having a conversation with Sylvester about the haberdashery. See, it's becoming a real problem. You cannot hit the reset button on your rage. Why? Well, and you don't have to carry. I'm not telling anybody to carry rage around, because that is destructive to the body. But I'm saying you have to just funnel that into your politics. You don't keep it in here. You say, I'm going to use this and make that something productive. And you do that as long as Sylvester don't come along and start talking to you about his haberdashery. And then you want to come to me, well, what you think about his haberdashery? Don't you think that we could all have haberdasheries? I've been to his haberdashery. It's a very nice haberdashery. The data is the data. What we're looking at is something that can only be fixed. You shouldn't have to reiterate this as much, by institutions. We're citizens who have had institutions weaponized against us. That can't be fixed by Sylvester's haberdashery. Now let me just go into the article that I brought up before, and we're going to talk a little bit about courts, because we don't talk a lot about courts. We talk a lot of stuff. We talk a lot about mass incarceration. We don't talk a lot about like the courts and what the courts did and how the courts took that legislation and put it into play, and how even prosecutors who did not have a strike 3 or a mandatory minimum, they had discretion in what they did. So we don't talk a lot about the courts and what the courts can do and how the courts work in terms of accountability. So, because you gotta be able to hold somebody accountable. That's what we're talking about in Flint. Who are you gonna hold accountable for this? If nobody gets held accountable, guess who will come in and do the same thing to you next time? If you have a free-for-all, and everybody can just come in and take advantage of ADOS, what do you think that's going to lead for in our lives? What do you think our lives are going to look like if people can just come in there and wantonly take advantage of us? Don't worry, I'll wait. So let's just talk a little bit about court systems and resets, and how we always get back to stuff. So you went to Sylvester, you talked to Sylvester about his haberdashery, and all of a sudden, well, we might be able to do more than you thought, Yvette, but Sylvester's a good man, Yvette, and I don't know why you would be that way. And now you're just being disagreeable. So let's just talk a little bit about what happened here. Let's talk a little bit about what the Supreme Court just did here and why it matters. Courts, legislation, policy. Let's do a little court right now. The Supreme Court on Tuesday cleared the way for water crisis victims to sue state and local government officials in Flint. For years, Flint city officials and state regulators have argued that they are protected. Protected, ain't that something? Let me make that a little bit smaller. Hold on one second. Protected by qualified immunity from being sued for their role in the water contamination crisis. But lower courts have ruled to the contrary. The initial lawsuit turned away by the High Court was filed in 2016. It argues that officials, including then Governor Rick Snyder, acted indifferently to the risk of bodily harm that residents faced when they were exposed to high level of lead and other contaminants after the city's drinking water source was switched to draw from the Flint River in 2014. The move was made without properly treating pipes for corrosion, letting lead and bacteria into the water supply. Right? Let me pull this one up. Hold on one second. In April 2019 ruling, U.S. District Judge Judith Levy ruled that Snyder was indifferent. We're talking about Snyder. We're talking about Governor of Michigan. That's what we're talking about, right? Was indifferent because instead of mitigating the risk of harm caused by the contaminated water, he covered it up. In private, he worried about the need to return. Does this go through? In private, he worried about the need to return Flint to Detroit's water system and the political implications of the crisis. But in public, he denied all knowledge, despite being aware of the developing crisis. During the period that Flint's top water came from the Flint River, Legionnaire's disease outbreak occurred, killing at least 12 people, dozens of others hospitalized. Although government officials initially claimed the water was safe to drink, 18 months later they admitted it was not. It wasn't until 2016 that the city's water supply finally met federal safety standards, though some residents remain skeptical of those findings. Let me tell you something. Oh, Obama was drinking the water. It's safe, y'all. Y'all go out here and get you some Flint water. It's all right. I drank me a sip of it. Government, I've said it before, and I will say it again. Government picks winners and losers. They decide who's on the bottom, and they made a decision. It's not that they're on white people in Flint. But you don't think the government will sacrifice some? They have made a decision, though. And this Supreme Court case is saying, you know, y'all gotta, no, you can't bring this, listen, no. No. This is what it means right here. Supreme Court allows Flint water lawsuits to move forward. Officials not immune. That means somebody might get held accountable. Could have gone another way. Could have taken and said, you know what? Flint, you know, the officials are immune. See, when you talk about courts are, in this case, they're talking about who is immune, who is accountable. They also protect rights, right? When you talk about whether or not you have the right to be a citizen, and what are your rights as a citizen? People, you know, gun rights activists talk about all the time that their Second Amendment rights. We talk about the right to free speech. We have civil rights cases which define our rights, and everybody's shoehorning their way into it in ways I don't understand. But we're talking about your rights. We're talking about property. We're talking about federal. We're talking about whether or not whether or not different courts disagree, right? Because you have your federal courts. Most of the stuff is heard in the state, but then you have your federal court, which is kind of like, does it affect? Is America the United States versus, right? Is it based on some kind of right or something like that? Is it based on a federal statute? EEOC claim? Something like that? Let me tell you, fam, there's a reason that you see so many court cases where we lost, at least initially, like Dred Scott and other things like that. You see those court cases and we didn't fare well. And our position in this society is right in line with what happened to us in those court cases. Should have won, didn't. And where we are now, we live with the results of those cases. And then we live with the result of, not only do you have to win in court, you got to make sure it's enforced. With housing, we saw some wins in the Supreme Court, didn't get enforced. So wait a minute, we got to get the wins and then get them enforced. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's too much work to hit the reset button, though. If it is what it is and we know what it is and we're marching in a certain direction, we're marching forward in a certain direction, freedom, justice. If we're marching in that direction, you can't go back and be like, well, Yvette, I know what you said, but Sylvester's haberdashery. No, you're here. You don't get to hit the reset button about a haberdashery. What's wrong with you? You all right? You know who we are, what we stand for. You know what the data says. You can't hit no reset button and feel differently. I said in another show when I was talking about groups and all this, I said about solidarity. Right? We're talking about amongst ADOS. There has to be some solidarity in terms of who we are as a group and what we stand for, what we're willing to fight for. And it's about the process. You can't. It's almost like getting in the middle of a algebra class. And say, well, I don't know. You know, you say 2 + 2 is 4, but Sylvester say 2 + 2 is 135. So maybe y'all just got two differences of opinion. Because Yvette, you don't have a haberdashery. I don't know. You hit the reset button because the reset button makes you feel comfortable. Because all this stuff right here that we talk about creates anxiety. And you get rid of that anxiety by hitting the reset button. Federal courts deal with rights and constitutionality. Federal law. That's why we always end up there so much. And what do you have? What is it like? God, I know appellate courts are like region. I think no federal courts, they're regional. And then you have your appellate courts, which have like 3 people on your appeals courts when you want to appeal it over there. And then if you then like you can go to the Supreme Court. So you have this whole thing set up. And when you look at what we just talked about and what the Supreme Court is going to do or not do in terms of what they do and what they don't do, in everything, like I say, action and inaction, it's about what you do as well as what you don't do. What they're doing is like, no, we're not finna side on the side of Michigan, right? Y'all got to figure, no. Because they can't affirm. No. So, what I'm saying is that these institutions hold power, whether it's the White House, whether it's the legislative branch, whichever branch. And let me just show you, in case you weren't convinced. Well, let's just look at what Flint was dealing with in terms of their water, real quick. Just to put it in context. Just to put it in a little bit of context, because you got to put it in context. Let me tell you something. This is not a comedy show, people. This is none of this stuff. What we're looking at right here is not funny. This is people being poisoned. Majority of us. This image provided by FlintWaterStudy.org shows water samples from a Flint, Michigan home. The bottles were collected from left on January 15, January 16, January 21st. That's the water. That's what comes out of the tap. That's what comes out of the tap. I don't know. The Supreme Court can affirm, reverse, or remand. Right? That's all important. And it's not just the Supreme Court. It's crazy to me how many Negroes get upset when they got to go to traffic court, but then say government don't matter. You was scared out your mind when you had to go to traffic. I hope they don't. He can't. I turned left. I didn't do nothing wrong. The line, I was on 2 lines and I was turning left and I didn't do nothing wrong. He came out of nowhere. I'm going to go to court and get this. Wait a minute. That's still government. I don't care whether it's your state, municipality, that's still your government. What you talking about? Then you can't hit the, see the thing is you can't hit the reset button because you heard somebody say something that sounded, that made you feel better than what we had to say. You can't hit, that's not a reason, that's not good enough. You don't get to do that. You don't get to play umpire either. You don't get to play umpire or mediator. You don't get to be like, well, he said this and you said this. You know, you get to make a decision. And I always tell you, verify whatever I say. Go figure it out. When I say something, you go look it up and you'll find it yourself. You don't have to just trust Yvette. Go look it up. But you don't get to just play all this stuff where you play armchair politics, where you see, I saw all of that when Obama was in office and drinking the Flint water. Well, see, Yvette, he got to do that. He got to see, you don't understand politics. He has to do that. He has to play that way or the Republicans will get angry. What do I care? You have to advocate from where you are. Your group's specificity. That is where you argue from. You don't say, well, I don't want to see more taxes because if I was rich, I wouldn't want more taxes either. You ain't rich. You don't see rich people arguing, well, if I was poor, I would like a lot of taxes, so put a bunch of taxes on me. You argue from where you are right now. You argue from your position in this life right now. And our position is bottom caste. That's what you argue for. And you argue for the institutions of government instead of being weaponized against us to be used on our behalf. You argue for full citizenship. That's it. You have to, go back and look at the civil rights movement. And let me just bring up a few more things just to kind of bring it home in terms of like some of the worst, that's Dred Scott, some of the worst decisions and how we live those court decisions. And let me just bring something up real quick. In the Dred Scott case, hands down the worst Supreme Court decision ever. This is from, I think it's Fed Law, something like that. Dred Scott held that African Americans, whether free men or slaves, could not be considered American citizens. The ruling undid the Missouri Compromise, barred laws that would free slaves, and all but guaranteed there would be no political solution to slavery. The opinion even included a ridiculous parade of horribles that would appear if Scott were recognized as a citizen. Just racism. That's all it is. Parade. That's racism. Like African Americans being able to vacation, hold public meetings, and exercise their free speech rights. And guess what? When they ruled that there was no law, that we weren't citizens, and so that nobody had to respect us as citizens, that's what it was. We lived that. Our ancestors lived that, and we still live it today. You can't tell me government doesn't matter. Now people say, well, Yvette, if it matters, if courts matter so much, why don't you want to get a Democrat elected? You should just be voting Democrat. Whoever the president is, should just get a Democrat, because it doesn't go far enough. And we'll get to that in a second, because that's not enough to save us. It matters though. What we have to do is go before that. We have to go earlier than that. Like we have to change the discourse that's going to be in court. We have to change what's going to be filed and how it's going to be said. We talked about this case right here. Y'all remember this case, Backy? Where we talked about where it got to be. It's all about affirmative action. It's about diversity. Yeah, we needed that to be heard by the Supreme Court. But we needed to have advocacy for specificity. And everybody says, well, this case saved affirmative action. But saved it for who? It's not just about having Democrats or whatever. It's about how we frame the narrative and the conversation, the argument that goes into the courtroom. And you don't get there by setting the reset button all the time. Well, I talked to Leonard. Now, he run a fish business. And he said that you wrong about this. Now, what do you say to Leonard? Child. Well, let's just, let's just stay a little bit on the court for just a little while. What do you say to Leonard? I don't say nothing to him. You talk to him. I don't want to talk to Leonard. Plessy versus Ferguson, the court's famous separate but equal ruling upheld state segregation laws. In doing so, the court made sure that the gains of the post-Civil War Reconstruction era were quickly replaced by decades of Jim Crow laws. Now the problem is, Booker T. Washington kind of paved the way for this with his speech. We can be like fingers of the same hand, separate, blah 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 blah. Didn't work. It just didn't. No, it didn't work. Separate but equal was never equal. It just allowed them to cordon us away into places and give us the worst of everything. Make us third world citizens in a first world country. That's what happened. And we live the consequences of that still today. All of this stuff we still live. So it is amazing to me that anybody can say to me or anybody else, well, courts don't matter that much. You remember we had that whole debate with people I won't name right after during the Byron Allen case. Well, courts, that law don't matter. No laws matter. You ain't been an attorney. You ain't never did no law. You ain't did nothing. We don't even know. People who don't have any kind of expertise all of a sudden, well, that case don't matter none. You say so. Because all of this, and then people will just reset. You will have been with me 3 years about this specificity of ADOS. I've been in here like 10 years, but 3 years in terms of talking about just this, right? Nothing else. And somebody will come along and say that, and you'll hit the reset button. Well, Yvette, now tell me, I know what you said. But Leroy, I ran into Leroy and Bessie Smith over at the corner store. You know the one on 45th and Broadway? Yeah, we was over there talking, and they said that you wrong. Now, let me tell you what they said. You just hit the reset button on me. Because you know whether what they said, you have access to all the same data that we already talked about. You know whether they right or wrong. Why are you bringing it to me? Why you didn't tell them they was wrong when you saw them at the fish fry? Now, what you said ain't make no sense now. But you wanna hit the reset button because the reset button makes everybody feel comfortable. Like, you have to feel like, well, maybe it's just two opinions. If it's just two opinions, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to really activate myself in any kind of, habitual way. I just do what I can when I can. And courts, they don't matter like that. I can, and I'm sure it ain't that bad as Yvette say anyway. She be exaggerating. She get all loud on her show too. She get emotional sometimes. I don't think she right about that. Bessie Smith said the same thing. What does the data say? Forget what I say. Forget what I do. What does the data tell you? The data suggests how the group is moving. What does it say? I'm just asking. I'm just asking. What does it say? You're not supposed to be around here playing umpire. That's not what we do. We're supposed to know where we stand and what we stand on. And we stand on what? Our square. I don't understand that. We had Byron Allen with an 8-minute clip to explain being shut out. Somebody who's been in all the rooms, right? Like, no. They said they're not doing this no more. 8-minute clip at the ADOS conference. That was an 8-minute clip at the ADOS conference explaining what was happening. What is happening. And why it matters that he owns the Weather Channel. Billionaire. He explained that at the ADOS conference. And what you do is listen to Leroy and Bess and them over there at the fish fry and at the haberdashery, and you come to me and you say, well, they said Byron he might have did it wrong. He might have just negotiated it wrong. That's your way of hitting the reset. That's a psychological reset because you can't deal with what's going on. Why are you listening to people at the haberdashery as opposed to him? He's been in all the rooms. Ain't suing for no reason. The fact that Diddy came out and said, yeah, Byron's right, and I don't want Comcast using me, that tells you where we are. Economic collapse. And at a certain point, you have to stand on that. At a certain point, every time somebody tells you something, you can't hit the reset button. It's not how this works. I'm not saying we don't need courts. I'm saying we need more than courts. I'm saying we need a drastic transformation. The thing says hitting zero wealth by 2053, but I think we already there. Feels that way to me in America. It ain't morning for us. Ain't never been morning for us. Because we talked about, I just want to draw a line to what I said the other day about parchment. And when people don't hear you scream, as an individual or a group, if you're in a relationship and you're going through a lot and your partner don't hear you scream or don't hear you upset and don't listen, you got a problem. It's the same thing as a group. So we talked about Parchment Prison and those videos that are coming out of there and those images, that's a torture chamber. Well, it says the same thing if the government is allowing or poisoning you and your children. Not much difference there. We got parchment over here. Over here we got they poisoning us and they trying to get out of the responsibility of having to do anything about it. But then people want to tell me government don't matter and courts don't really matter. What you're really telling me is accountability doesn't matter. Rights don't matter. Federal law don't matter. State law don't matter. Even you talk about that. Let's just get into a little bit of what happened. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on. Okay. 5 years after Michigan switched water supply to the contaminated Flint River from Lake Huron, the city's lead crisis has migrated from its homes to its schools, where neurological behavioral problems, real or feared because some of them are projected into the future, among students are threatening to overwhelm the education system. The contamination of this long struggling city's water exposed nearly 30,000 school children to a neurotoxin known to have detrimental effects on children's developing brains and nervous systems. Requests for special education or behavioral interventions began rising 4 years ago when the water contamination became public, bolstering a class action lawsuit demanding more resources for Flint's children. Nakia Wakes could not understand how her wiry, tooth-grinned 6-year-old had gone from hyperactive one school year to what teachers described as hysterical the next. Then in 2015, the state of Michigan delivered a diagnosis of sorts. Miss Wakes' neighborhood water, which her son Jalen had been drinking and bathing in for more than a year, was saturated with lead at the highest levels in the city. What the research says is that as they get older, the cognitive demands get harder. We will start to see the demands get higher, and the resources aren't going to be there, said Lisa Hagel, the superintendent of Genesee Intermediate School. And there's a lawsuit now. He'll go to courts again. He'll come to courts again. The lawsuit forced the state to establish the $3 million Neurodevelopmental Center of Excellence, which began screening students. The students then confirmed a range of disabilities, which have prompted more requests for intervention. The percentage of the city's students who qualify for special education services has nearly doubled to 28% from 15% the year the lead crisis began. And the city's screening center has received more than 1,300 referrals since December 2018. The results, about 70% of the students evaluated have required school accommodations for issues like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD, dyslexia, or mild intellectual impairment, said Catherine Burrell, the associate director of the center. 70%. 70%. Now hold on. So so what's happening? Because it's not just Flint with these neurotoxins. So your kids drink lead water and they develop developmental problems. And then they get out of school, commit crimes, and they end up in Parchment. You tell me there's no method to that madness. Michigan, Mississippi. Ain't nowhere to run. Although Baltimore had another problem, right? Just didn't have no heat in the school. That's the young man described in the article. Now, the answer for him that they allowed for him was this. Hold on one second. I'm so tired of this thing acting up. Here we go. So what is he doing now? He now attends Michigan Virtual Charter Academy, an online school in his living room. So he don't have no school no more. That's gonna be that's the future. Whether you know it or not, that's the future. They've already said in what state was that? Was that Chicago or Michigan that you have no right to an education? They're gonna just put your kid, poison him, whatever. We're gonna put him in the living room. He's your problem now. And then when he goes to Parchment, and he's gonna be tortured, he's gonna come out. And then not only is he gonna be tortured, if he comes out, he ain't gonna be right. And we're not gonna get him no therapy, no nothing. So they're going to steal his education and send him into the world with no social skills. You can't hit the reset button on this. There is no alternate argument. There is no count and counterpoint. You are not my umpire. We're supposed to be on the same team. Right? Let me put up another pic real quick. And all you parents out there, they finna have all y'all in your living room. All your kids in your living room. Well, I work every day. They don't care. So, you figure it out. He hopping around all day. We can't deal with it. But he hopping around because of the lead. So? Well, he's hopping around because we got evicted. Because we're poor. So? Well, she got problems because, her father was incarcerated in this. So? Antonio told y'all 3 years ago they was gonna take away school and give you virtual charter school in your online school in your living room. 3 years ago he said that. That's what it is, and that's where we are. So, I think we have to own, like, when we talk about this video and Antonio, he's right. They're going to take school. They're taking school. Go home. That's where rights come into play. That's where courts come into play. And you can't, it's almost like when I say hit the reset, it's almost like people take off and I'm in a race. And then you say, oh, wait a minute, wait. I'm finna go back here and start over again. I'm not going to do the race. You never do the race then. You can't keep going back and hitting the reset button. Well, I think, I do, I don't know. I was talking to Malik today. He was out there fixing his car. And he said something that, I want you to listen to, Yvette. Now, I know what you said. Stop it. It's not me. The data is telling you what it is. That's what projects. Anybody tells you the data doesn't matter, doesn't understand anything. No. We're falling off a cliff. No school, no opportunity, locked out. That's what it is. Ain't me being, you being depressed. No, that's the data. What you talking about? Don't project it to me. I had a cookie. I feel fine. I'm talking about what we're living through. So anyway, fam, I promised I would get out here a little bit earlier this time around. I want to hear what everybody has to say about what's going on and what's going on in the world, in our lives, and hitting that reset button. Tell me if you have anybody around you who's been hitting that reset button and they say something, and then, well, I was with you, but then this happened. Well, I was with you, but then I was watching CNBC, and they said something interesting. You know what time? You know what that little show that come on at 1 o'clock with the bell? And what is it going to take to get people on the same page for a long time? Like, nah, this is the mission. The mission is the mission. What does it take to get people to be the mission is the mission? How many people, how many of your kids do they have to, sons and daughters, do they have to steal education from and poison? And how many of your sons do they have to put in a torture chamber? I don't understand what's the barometer? So let's answer that question as well. We're going to go to the phones, be right back as usual, family, had a conversation. All right, family, we are back. We are back. We are going to have a conversation. See who I'm gonna go through to first. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Do 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 do. Hey, call back by mistake. I don't know what be going on the phone. Anyway, fam, let me go to the first call. I'm coming to 773. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? Hello?
Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
Hello? Hey, Yvette, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
All right, I was just calling because
Hello? Y'all gotta get your phone. Anyway, going to the next caller. Going to 919. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
hello.
Hey, 919. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, man? I just want to say thank you so much for what you're doing for us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no doubt. I just want to make a couple points real quick.
Okay.
I'm Chris. I'm calling from South Florida, by way of North Carolina. That's 919. And I just want to say, like, my brother actually just got like a jury notice in the mail, and I was trying to explain to him that it's really important to answer, like, to go to jury duty because of the parchment situation. Because he like, we don't, like, a lot of people don't understand that they have they can do something to stop somebody from going to jail, or, you know what I'm saying, like, help somebody out, or just make a judgment on something. As something as little as, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people that who say I'm trying to get out of jury duty. No, you shouldn't. Don't try to get out of it. I understand, like, you think you're gonna get fired or something, but, like, I just don't want to be bothered with it. What?
Yeah, like, how can you? That's the least you could do. That's the absolute least you could do for somebody. Like, if it comes up to a situation where it's like a George Zimmerman situation, and you have to answer it. You have to answer it.
And then you never know what it's gonna be. That's the thing. You never know. You never know. But you that's your responsibility. That's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility and your duty as a citizen. Point blank, period. I mean, you may get kicked off the jury, but you have to answer it. And answer it honestly. Like, my father's a 25-year police veteran. You know, so I understand where, like, an officer's point of view. At the same time, like, we black out here, and it's a whole different situation when you can see both sides. It's like, it's not confusing, but it's just like, you have a duty. You have a double duty of a citizen and as a black person to make sure that it's done correctly and you choose the correct way. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Thank you, fam. No, I appreciate it.
You know,
yeah. You got another point? I'm sorry, fam.
I appreciate you, and thank you for picking up my call, because my birthday is the 23rd. It's tomorrow, so.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday, then.
Thank you. And if anybody's in South Florida, DM me at Uncle Fred on Instagram, and Poppy Champu 17 on Twitter. If y'all guys want to link up in South Florida, because it's kind of hard to find us out here. It's like,
you might want to put that in the chat.
Really hard.
You might want to put that in the chat, fam. Too,
no,
as well.
No, I definitely put it in the chat.
Okay.
I found one person.
Okay, no problem. Appreciate you. Thank you for calling in, fam.
I appreciate you.
All right.
And I love you.
Love you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, you gotta. You can't say you want full citizenship and then you don't want the responsibilities of citizenship. I mean, for me, it's just that simple. Like, if you know, it's not like, well, why don't you want to go? Well, I just don't want to. No, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. Not just because you don't want to. You know, I got called for jury duty like 3 times one year, and then they just stopped calling me altogether. Knock on wood. I got pulled out of that thing. But anyway, I am going now to 253. 253, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette, this is Steve from Washington State. How you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Want to wish you a happy New Year 2020. I hope all my fam out there will be out there to vote and raise awareness. I mean, you bring up one strong point here, and I see it all the time, and I don't know if this is our generation or the next generation under. If we keep saying we don't give an F, check out, we will get erased out of here. One thing I want to point out is that I've been in the construction trades for a lot of years, and one thing I have noticed is that there are more and more and more immigrants coming in, almost replacing the African American company that used to take these jobs. Now you're seeing more and more immigration, more immigrants coming in, and I'm seeing this, and I'm like, oh my God, talking about change and things are on the move. I also want to point out we have to be involved with the political process. I'm a firm believer of that. We help build the political process. There's no excuse for us not to be involved. I've been called up at jury duty. It's not a big deal. Just get out there and deal with it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So those are the points I wanted to bring up. I wish everybody a brand new year. The most important thing, this is the long fight. It's nothing new to us. We have to be in it for the fight. Of course, it's longer and forever since slavery and then some. But we still have to continue the fight. We still have to push our own people to meet a certain standard. We have to. So I just want to bring that up. I have a lot of respect for you and Antonio, your generation, continuing on. I don't pay a lot of attention to, I don't know who this Talik dude is or who else. They have a right to your opinion. I do not have time or make the time for their opinions. They have a right to whatever their world is about. I come over where there are people discussing political solution and intellectualism, and that's where you two are at for me. So to each their own. If you want to get caught up in the gossip and the who's who of the community, whoever they are, you brought out one important point. I'm going to let you go with this.
Okay.
It's all about your wallet. That's it. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for calling in, fam. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, America. If you're in America, they got us in America without wealth, where everything costs a bunch of money. Like, you can't. No, this is not the time where I'm just gonna grow a tomato and no, that's not where we live. So let me go to the next call, fam. Let me go to the next call. I am going to 717. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
North.
I'm doing pretty good. What's going on? What's on your mind?
Good. Glad to hear it. Just wanted to talk about that word reset, and also I kind of want to give you a little story because I used to teach intermittently at a school in the Bronx, 965 Longwood Avenue in the Bronx. You guys can look it up. It's called Banana Kelly. I'm not going to really go into so far as psychology because I know that kind of bogs certain people down.
Okay.
But I really do think it needs to be said that there is a certain psychology about folks who want to always press the, proverbial reset button, if you will. A lot of the times they do this because it really is, I guess it really is too much for them to deal with. And what I've seen from just me talking to certain folks, they would rather get mad at me telling them the truth about what's going on around them than to actually deal with the initial problem.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For example, there was a guy that I was actually dating, middle-aged guy, and I'm talking to him about ADOS. I'm talking about what ADOS is, what ADOS is, performing, what we're doing, things of this nature. Now, he's from North Carolina. You know what I mean? He always was talking about, my parents got money, and you know what I mean? All this other type of stuff. And so when I would explain to him, I said, well, look, I come from a different background. Understand that your people come from the same background I'm coming from. Basically, I put it to him like this. I said, understand that if we were all put our hands up, the ones that don't have money is going to basically be more than you who have supposed money.
You understand what I'm saying? You guys are in small capacity, in small numbers. It's more of us than it is of you. So when I broke it down to him like that, it was just like, Yvette, I kid you not. It was like he literally had a mental breakdown. He kind of accepted it, but then by the next day, it was like I didn't even have a conversation with him.
Yeah,
and at the end of the day, yes. And at the end of the day, I had to get rid of him. I couldn't deal with it. I mean, because it's like to go back and forth with somebody like that, it's draining. 1 minute you accept it, the next minute that you don't, the next minute you accept it, the next minute you don't, and that's what that
It's a seesaw. Yes, it's a seesaw. And they'll come back and be like, well, we just have to agree to disagree. But I won the argument though. But I don't believe you. But I gave you facts. It's kind of like saying, well, I don't believe gravity. Like, we just gotta, I don't believe it. I think that's not a good theory. What are you talking about?
And I mean, I gotta tell you that he really tried it. It was just like it got to a point whereby he started telling me, "Oh, I don't want no woman that know everything. You think you know everything?" And he literally just started screaming at me one day, telling me, "Oh, you think you know everything, and I don't want no woman that's a know-it-all." I had to get rid of him. I really did. I had to get rid of him. Oh. Like it literally made no sense. But anyway, I don't want to keep.
Yeah, that screaming is enough. We ain't gonna be doing the screaming now. We do a lot of stuff. We're gonna be doing the screaming just because you wrong.
He tried it.
Who you yelling at?
So the next story is this. Now I wanted to kind of talk about what Tone talked about 3 years ago when he told anybody who had children, he told folk what was going to happen. Now I am like really riding for bringing this up because I kid you not, when I was teaching in 2010, that was the last year that I was teaching for the Board of Ed of New York. Now they had to put my ass, excuse me, I was about to say that word, but they had to put my backside up out of there because I was telling the parents, I said, do not allow your children to take these online classes because I'm telling you now, you may not see it now, but before you know it, you will not be dropping your children off at school. They looked at me like, what are you what are you talking about? I said, let me tell you something. If you allow them to take these classes, school won't exist for you anymore. I kid you not.
And then what happened? Yeah. It's just a doorway into not having school. Like, it's a doorway to put your kid on the computer all day at your house.
Yes. So when I forget the particular date that I saw, I knew it was about 2 to 3 years ago that I saw Tone face. I've been watching both of you guys about that more. Okay. And when I saw him say that, I was like, was he listening to some of my conversations with these parents? I was literally bugging out.
Yeah, you're right. And now everybody's saying that you're right, so. Ain't no reverse.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing. I'm always short to the point, girl. I love you. Bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you, fam. I appreciate it. Yeah, they gonna put you. There ain't no more school. You put them in front of the computer. Why be at work? What you gonna do? I don't know. And you can't leave him there. If you're doing something, you can't leave him there. They can call the police. He can't supposed to be there at that time. What am I supposed to do? I don't listen. Government don't know. We ain't gonna care. Well, I don't know why they do me like that. The government shouldn't do that to me. When did you try to hold the government accountable? You be the same person trying to hold them accountable who was telling me last week that I don't think you right about this. You just want everything from government. You just shouldn't do it like that, Yvette. Why don't you go talk to Sylvester at the haberdashery? That ain't gonna work. 518, I'm coming to you. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello?
What's your name? What's on your mind?
Are you talking to me?
Yep.
Can you hear
518. I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Wow. I finally got through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of did. I'm like digging a lot of what you're saying because, I mean, you kind of, you the one that did it. I think you and Tone, y'all shifted the conversation. They ain't talk about that nonsense no more, and the people is mad. They is extremely angry at you for changing the conversation. They tried to say all this other stuff about y'all, and I've been listening to you for a couple of years, and all them books and all them articles and all that stuff, they ain't reading that.
No, they're
Because if
not.
they was reading what you was telling us about, they couldn't possibly be saying, like, what did they say you was? Some kind of bot or a
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
Russian
a lot of
agent
stuff.
or
Well,
someone
we were,
carrying
not
on,
me.
and
It's
like
all of us. Yep.
you were undercover Republican or something. I mean, all this nonsense these people is saying, and they trying to throw all that junk at you, and they mad at you, but keep up the good work.
Oh,
'Cause
thank you. I
made
appreciate
them
it.
people, yeah, you made them see a different picture. Because I mean, I kind of was with the struggle, but the things that you telling me, like let me see that book. I read that book.
Which
They
one?
Were Her Property.
Okay.
I read that book. What's that? The Man Not by that Dr. dude.
Curry, Dr. Curry, yeah.
I read a lot of books.
Okay.
I read The Red Summer.
Okay.
1919. I read.
Oh, that was a good one.
My great grandfather, the African slave trader. I read
That New York article, yeah.
what was that? Umbrellas don't make it rain.
That report you showed did it. You've been working.
Yeah. So that's why I know that they talking that nonsense. That stuff don't even make no sense. What they saying, like this one dude with the money thing, he need 150,000 or 200,000 to have a conference. Why he need that kind of money?
Yeah,
And then they are throwing all this junk at you. Why don't they stick to the point? And the point is that we got 13 cents for every dollar that these white people got. Why is that like that? That can't be by mistake.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, you're right. Take it all back to the data. Why can't everybody stay on the data? When you see people trailing off and all that stuff, then like it's some funny business going on. They finna start talking about the haberdashery again. But thank you, fam. I appreciate it. I appreciate you calling in and keep doing the work, fam.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Too.
Thank you so much, and keep doing. That's what I'm talking about. Keep doing. He done read all the stuff. He done read everything. Anchored in the stuff. Anchored in all the data and all the reports and all that stuff. That's good stuff right there. That's good stuff right there. I'm going to 310. 310. What's going on?
What up, man? Can you pull up that kid playing the video game while
Hold on one second.
Well, what's the trip is even with that point, that the gentleman just said about 13 cents. Don't let them con you. It's really more like 1.5, 1.1 cent. Because when you look at, again, the depreciating assets is what 10 cent of that is depreciating assets. Because if we really had 13 cents to every dollar of white folks, we would own a lot more wealth in the country. If we had 13 cents for every dollar of white folks, we probably would be more at the wealth level akin to the level of wealth that we're supposed to be at. If you can shrink yourself, because I want to read the bottom. But, so we have more like 1.1 cent, so don't let them play with you. Part of what you're seeing right now is that our failure underpins the entire, system. So, it's like, somebody got to fail. Well, we don't complain no way, and we come from slaves, just put it over there. And I think for a lot of people, that's kind of hard to digest because you believed in an aspiration that never really happened. It's funny because one of the things that you can see when you read that letter that Diddy said about Comcast sounds a lot like my videos. Just saying. It don't sound a lot like anything you heard from Diddy, I'll tell you that. And I think that, and I'm talking about the letter where he talks about the reality of being locked out before he even started. And that's Diddy. That's everybody's, idea of what black wealth actually became. You could come from New York and not graduate from Howard and become a billionaire. But it don't look right when you start unpeeling everything. And I think one of the things that's not happening with the whole infrastructure of schooling is we talked about this in context of the Overton window and Betsy DeVos and the whole idea of why charter schools were created. I don't care about your idea of choice. What they did was, and DeVos was the beginning of the charter schools in Michigan. Same place as what we're looking at right now with the lead water, right there?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. You got
devils coming up with charter schools to the point where now I hear that in a lot of places in Michigan, the charter certificate as it is only gets you a C+ high school. Some of the areas. But you got Roland Martin pushing charter schools, and nobody's holding them accountable. Nobody's really looking at who actually told us to go to charter schools. What kind of like driverism, school choice? What was the model of charter school? Was it you running away from your sister? Both figuratively and literally. So you didn't want to be at the same school as your sister because your sister got the bad kids. You got the good job, so you got the good kids. Charter makes it so that you can take and extract your kid out and put them somewhere else. Well, now we're going to ask you to pay some money. That $12,000 a year that's supposed to get you a full education is not going to get you there no more. But we also, let's talk about this, and this is really why I called. We got Jalen. Jalen having a good old time on this couch. Ain't nothing wrong with having a good old time. He's playing some video games. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But let's read the bottom. I wanted Yvette to get to this because this is important what's at the bottom of the thing. It says Jalen would go on to cycle through 2 schools, receive 30 suspensions, and rack up 70 unexcused absences. Now, I'm not dealing with whether it's his fault. The kid got lead in his head from lead in the water. But I'm asking you the question today. You can answer in the chat. Do any of y'all know what it's like to live with a Jalen that's growing up that got 30 suspensions already? Do you really understand the ecosystem of what they created for this woman through her child? Do you know what he is forecasting for the rest of their lives? I'm just saying this to you because 30 suspensions kind of seems, it seems like a lot. It seems like you in school for fighting and writing on the desk and you got to pay for the desk. Y'all ever have to pay for the desk for the school because your kid wrote on the desk, scratched into it or whatever? But they don't want to connect that back, watch this, man, to the lead. So they put lead in his head, then he scratched on the desk, but the desk is your fault. This is what we're dealing with is that this is kind of a microcosm of the reparations discussion. Nobody wants to connect the dots and look at the reality of what 30 suspensions looks like for the rest of your life, this mother's life. I come back to it, and I have you understand that Jalen, as much as he might mean well, goes to a prison like Parchment in Michigan later on. I'm not wishing it on him. I'm hoping he gets better, using it figuratively. But he's there because they put lead in the water, and nobody dealt with the lead in the water. Jalen's having a good old time right now. I don't think we all get the dynamic of a system that has no space for a poor little black kid that got lead in his head, no matter how it got there, and 30 suspensions already. What are we going to do about it? What is our body politic going to look like? How are we going to build community? And I don't see it happening right now. We can't just call this kid, if his mama's single, that he just, what was it, the word that she used? It was, I forgot, it was horrible. What was the description?
What?
B.A. niggas or something?
Yeah, you know what the word is, B.A. niggas, single mom, black single moms.
That's not going to get it. That politics, that whatever that is not going to get it to describe the horrendous reality of an American descendant of slavery that had lead put in their water, that when the consequences of that lead showed up were suspended from school so much that they couldn't go to school no more and get no social skills. And as a result, later on, has a high probability of not being able to function in the society. And as a result, does crime, it ends up at Parchment or a prison license because he's not in Mississippi, of course. I just kind of wanted to slow everything down because what happens also in so many cases is that now you the mama and you in this house with a kid that y'all get into physical altercation. He don't mean much by it. He trying to do that. He got lead in his head. The police
are not ready to deal with. They're not built to deal with interpersonal. I remember I read a story, I think we covered on the show, where a father basically had a son that was disabled. And they used to fight in the house because he's trying to control his son. So he locked himself in the closet. Now, you remember this story there? He locked himself in the closet, called the police. While he's in the closet, the kid goes outside and ends up the neighbor is trying to calm the kid down. Police come and shoot the neighbor and the kid. Because the police ain't really built to deal with these interpersonal problems. But the government put the lead in his head. And I'm not saying that kid had lead in his head. He had mental disabilities. We don't know where that came from. All I'm saying long and short is that this whole thing is woven together. And what's happening right now is Black America, in large part, is living on a moment between Dr. King and hip-hop. A little moment of the 70s where a lot of Black people, not a lot, a chunk of Black people got jobs, went to work for the post office or whatever. That's over now. As that fades out, all we going to be left with is jailings, people in Loudoun County, people in Parchment, all across this country. I don't know how we going to survive that if we don't make a clear demand for our Black agenda and reparations for Adolf. Thank you.
Appreciate it as always, Tone. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody got to stop acting like there's some kind of alternative that we just haven't heard. We got to do X, Y, Z. No, we just haven't heard. No. She's going to be at the house. And then he's going to see America around him, these kids who are in the house getting educated, and they don't realize that these little diplomas they got from going to school at the house ain't going to mean nothing. And they're going to be wanting what they see around them, money and people eating good and living good. And they're going to be frustrated and mad in your house. Frustrated and angry about everything they can't have in your house. Ooh, difficult times. I'm going now to 252. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello?
What's going on, 252?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, good evening. Yvette. Listen, it's my first time calling.
Oh, okay.
I want to say thank you to you and Tone. You guys have made me and my family better.
Oh,
all the factual and informal data that y'all been providing. I am very impressed and very pleased to be a member of ADOS by lineage, and I'm proud to have you guys representing us the way you do.
Oh, thank you.
I have a concern with the fact that we're trying to penetrate a system that was built to do exactly what we all discussing this evening. What we've been discussing for the 400 years or so that we've been here. And I'm wondering, what I needed to do is check your website on the, I believe you have a website on a Black Agenda 101, is that correct?
ADOS101.com.
ADOS101.com. I need to check that site because I was wondering if you guys had anything in there pertaining to protected class, because I think without it, I don't see how we escape. Because every layer of the government, every layer, the medical, CDC, schools, farming, everything, every level of the government is bent on making sure we are destroyed. And I don't know how we win inside the system that way without demanding that they, of course, pay us what they owe us. And of course, I think we need to put in the protected class. I just want to say that.
We talked a lot on this show about being a protected class, because if you're not a protected class, what happens is that the sharks come in, right? And so let's say you have money, you have no ownership, you have no protection. What comes in is what happens is that the predators come in and get that money. That's what they do, because if you have no ownership, then it puts you in the position of just being a consumer, right? And then people can just scam you, because what happened to us in the subprime stuff and all that stuff was just scams. When you give us a higher interest rate or whatever on a loan than somebody else than a white person with a worse credit score or the same credit score, that's a scam. What we have is permission to scam us, and with predatory loans and predatory lending and all kinds of stuff, giving black farmers bad seeds. What has to happen is that when you're a protected class, like it's kind of like if you kill a protected animal, like that's your butt. Like we can find you, we're gonna find you to the hills. You can go to jail. Like it's hands off this community, and so you have to. But that requires government though to come into play in a real and meaningful way for us that we have not seen. It requires protection. See, people always talk about, this is my problem with a lot of do for self. We just should have done business. We did all of that. What happened is that we weren't protected by government. So you have I remember reading a story. Somebody brought up the book, the 1919 book. I remember reading a story about a black man who had a printing press. And somebody burnt down the printing press. And you know who burnt down the printing press? It was he had a white man who was among all the people that he worked for. He employed black people and white people. One of the white men got jealous and burnt it down. Like the destruction of black business a lot of the times was just because of jealousy. Like, you shouldn't have this. Well, the only thing that stops them from doing that is government coming in and saying, we're protecting these black people's, ADOS people, black people, that we're protecting their property. You cannot do this to them. The government has to step up for us. If you can't do that, it doesn't matter whether you build a business if government ain't going to protect it. What's the point?
And we have to do, we are demanding that. That's part of our.
There has to be
right?
I thought you have to have protection as a part of a reparations package. There's no way to do it, because if not, it just goes back into the ecosystem and it becomes wealth for somebody else, because these people got 1,000 ways to scam us.
You're absolutely right, and I'm glad to hear that. So I'll make sure I stay on board, stay attentive, and participate and support you guys as much as I can. Again, my name is Oscar Faison. I'm calling from Brooklyn, New York, and I just want to say, look, I love you guys. I support you. We're going to keep up this good fight.
Thank you. Appreciate it, fam. Thank you for calling in. First caller there. I'm first time caller there. So let me see. I'm going now to 765. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on, Yvette? This is your man calling from Dallas.
What's going on?
Nothing much. There was two things I had one thing I wanted to tell you, and then another, the other one I had a question for you.
Okay.
Well, the first thing is, I didn't get into a debate in the barbershop this time. I actually had a pretty decent conversation with the other barber, because I was asking them about conferences and whatnot. So I asked him, I said, if you had to pay $50, $100, $200, $500 for a conference, how long do you expect that conference to last? And he told me he said about 2 or 3 days. He was like, first day you want to get the meet and greet, and, next day information and whatnot. And then he said something else. So I was like, okay, I understand. So I asked him, I said, what do you think of a conference that lasts only about 3 to 5 hours? And without without skipping a beat, he said, that sounds like a vendor's whorehouse. Excuse my language. And I said, what? A vendor's what? And he repeated it, and I was like, what is that? He said, essentially what that sounds like is that you're going to get a bunch of people in there with, get a bunch of vendors in a room, and they essentially just about to sell these people a bunch of stuff. You're going to have a couple speakers speaking in the background, but essentially the whole purpose of the conference is to allow vendors to push products on the people who show up. What do you think of that?
Well, it might be. I can't call it. Like, I just never seen anything like it. Like, I don't know we didn't really have, I can't really speak to it because we didn't even really have vendors like that. There was a couple of food trucks, but we didn't really even so I don't even really know. Like, I don't even know how much vending you get done in a short amount of time. And I think it's just also interesting to me, because you really should have to say starts at 3. You should say 3 to what? Like, it shouldn't just say starting at 3. Like, if it's gonna just be in the evening or late afternoon, 3 to what? Like, part of what we have in this community is like a lack of accountability. And it's just like, if I get scared to hold somebody accountable. Like, if we say, if you ask us like Friday and Saturday and what? Well, we're going to say it's going to be Friday and it's going to be Saturday till noon or whatever, in terms of the ADOS conference. I don't understand how we all got into this space where, like, we don't want to hold people accountable and say, okay, how long? And why won't you say how long? And, you just say 3 until. Is it 3 until midnight? Like, no, that don't sound right. That place is closed. So what are we doing? But even starting at 3, there's no conference that starts at 3 for one day. That doesn't happen anywhere on the planet. Like, a conference that starts at 3 and it's one day. That doesn't happen. So, like, even just that part, like, what is this? And why won't you say what this is? Why won't you confirm what this is? If it's 3 to 5, if it's 3 to 8 or whatever, why do you have a problem saying that if you have confirmed it? And if you haven't confirmed it, we have another whole problem. I think we have a problem with accountability, and we call accountability pocket watching. No, nobody says anything about the donations that he gets. That's fine. We're talking about like you got money for a conference, a specific conference. And if you say anything about the money that you gave him, then that's pocket watching. He's made you feel ashamed of holding him accountable. I don't know how people do that, but that's on them.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And that's up to his people to hold him accountable. We can't even. It is what it is at this point. But my second thing is, I remember last week you were talking on in your video, you were talking about like starting a curriculum for like new members of ADOS who just coming in, and I just kind of wanted to know, because I want to do that for the ADOS Dallas chapter here, is to come up with like a curriculum for them. What videos do you think you should? Could you point me to that you and Tone have made that I can kind of go back and listen to and kind of kind of grab some notes from to kind of create that?
Oh. Ooh. You know what? I can't think of 3 on the top of my head, but I think the one on do for self-tourism, financial literacy without finances is a dead end. I think that's probably a good one. I think the Pan-Africanism one is probably financial literacy without finances. I think the Pan-Africanism is dead is a good one, because it just goes to like how we've kind of talked ourselves into something that is not a real thing. That's just kind of a psychological pep up for us, as opposed to real advocacy for us. So those are 2 I would point. I can't think of a third off the top of my head, but those are 2 I would really like, to really talk about.
Okay, all right. Well, then I thank you, and I'm gonna let somebody else go ahead and call it. I just want to really know that.
Okay.
I appreciate you taking
No problem,
call.
fam. No problem. No problem at all. Thank you. Going to our next caller. We are going now to I'm going to 210. 210. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? Yep, 210 fell off. I am going to now 646. 646. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, Yvette.
Hey.
This is Shaw from Brooklyn.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, so I'm well. I'm just calling. I want to also chime in on the class of because I'm in Brooklyn, New York. Every time something happens to a Jewish person, an anti-Semitic crime, like every single time something happens with them, it's anti-Semitic. And this is the lockdown that they have. This is a part of their reparation, ongoing. So I think as ADOS, this is something that we have to establish as well as a part of our reparation in protecting our class. So I just want to chime in on that. And I realize that anything happens to them, they base it upon being anti-Semitic.
Well, thank you, caller. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Thank you. And let me just say this: what she's talking about is like there's a collective awareness, right? There's a collective awareness. Like, this is what we went through. We ain't going through that no more, and this is how we're gonna deal with it. This is how we're gonna get it out of here. This is how we're gonna get anti-Semitism and everything out of here. We ain't gonna do that. We all on the same page. We not finna be bothered. Never forget. And I ain't got no problem with none of that. My whole thing is just like, we be on all kinds of pages. We can't stay on the same page. We will be on page. You know how a book will have 500 pages? And we'll be on page 499 and revert back to page 1. Goodness, we can't even finish the book. We can't even finish the book and say, this is the book of what we're going to do. We on the same page. Now you go back to page 1 and start debating about page 1. You done made it all the way through the book. You almost finished, but instead of being finished with the book and saying, yes, this is what we're going to do, you go back to page 1 and start debating about page 1. Well, I know somebody told me page 1 ain't right. No, we can talk about whether or not it's right in terms of the data and what the data suggests and all of that. We can definitely hash that out. But you just can't come back and hit the reset all the time. At a certain point, we got to agree on some stuff and move forward with it. You can't come back every day with a different story. You know, Yvette, I bumped my toe on the way, and it made me think about something you said, and I wondered now, if my toe get well and is natural, don't we get well as ADOS naturally? Ain't that the way the universe work? Oh, what? I don't know what that means. Anyway, going to the next call, family. I'm going to 702. 702, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette, this is Charlie from Nevada.
What's going on, Charlie?
Hello?
I'm here. What's going on?
Hey, nothing much. We've spoken before, and like I said, I hate to see you in the situation you're in. I hate to see you struggling like this, but we spoke about this. It's going to be this way. We didn't get in this thing overnight. We're not getting out anytime soon. It's going to be a lot of work. A lot of people need, like you said, you about a reset? We need a reset in our own minds as a group of people because it is going to take a long time. I mean, we had unfortunately, the illusion of assimilation and striverism, that period of time we had, it really set us back a long way. And it's gonna take a long time for us to return to the mentality that we had before that. We spoke before, and I talked about my grandparents, and I know my grandparents were bringing out a lot of those people.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
No, I said I remember. That's all I said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those people, I think we've lost a lot. Like I said, I'm a little older than all you guys, you and Tony and all this. I'm not old like Otis, but I'm older than you guys, and so I was able to see a lot of this stuff as a child. So like I said, the striverism, we talked about the striverism and how ridiculous it was. Because I'll tell you right now, I saw a time when we had black hospitals, black restaurants, black TV stations, black radio stations, black recording studios, all of that. We had all those things because the door was open for a slight period of time, and there were people who were ready to go in who had the attitude of understanding. People who understood the situation they were in. But they did not understand that it wasn't over. The battle wasn't over. The battle was just beginning. Because once they got in, there was no way for them to remain there. They didn't have the capital to remain there. They didn't have the social or economic capital to stay there. And so all of this already, this is like a broken record to me to hear this, because we've already talked about this. But I know a lot of people don't know. They don't know because they're post the crack era. I mean, and I'm saying that in terms of that thing that happened to us, that destruction that was laid on us with mass incarceration and crack cocaine and the continuation and the deepening of redlining when they took redlining and turned it into the mortgage industry, the exorbitant mortgage industry that came online. All those things were destroying us piece by piece by piece. I don't think we've ever recovered from the 70s/80s and that destruction that came around. So psychologically, we're more damaged now than we were even before. We were damaged before that era. So it's going to take a long time to dig out of it. But I see you guys digging out of it. I'm glad, and I say you guys because you're a little younger than me. And I see some of that. I see some digging, particularly among the even younger people, like the teenagers, 20 people, because they're seeing it. They're watching you. They're watching me. They're watching our parents, and they're going, wait a minute. They're looking at this thing, and they're beginning to wake up. And I think it's going to take a long time. It's unfortunate that we're in this situation. It's unfortunate we don't want to talk about it. We never do want, even my grandparents, they never really want to talk about this the right way because they had fear, and we have this blind spot because the illusion of assimilation. We think we're Americans. I'm going to say that again. We think we're Americans, but we were never allowed to be Americans. We should be, but we were never allowed to be. You brought up Dred Scott. They explicitly told you in Dred Scott you were never meant to be. Now, we are by all rights American citizens, but we have never been allowed to be American citizens, and they know that. They know that. They know full well they've used us as a step stool, as a false barrier to the bottom for them to pretend that America is something that it has never really been. The ideal of America is beautiful, but it's never truly been manifested because they've always used us as an artificial bottom, as a stepping stool for everyone else in this country, including those black people who have made it out, to stand on top of it and pretend that this is this great place. Don't get me wrong. the idea, the idea, the rights of man idea, the seed of the idea that Jefferson and them took from France and put over here, that ideal is beautiful, and one day I think we'll get there, I hope, but unfortunately it's going to take us to do it. That's the sad part. We're going to fix America for America.
And make no mistake. And make no mistake, fam, America is a beautiful place for a whole lot of people. It's just not,
because of us. Because of our past sacrifices and the current sacrifices. You mentioned Flint and all these other places. We are sacrificing now so that we can maintain, like I said, we maintain a false bottom. There's a safety net for everyone in the country except us. We're below the safety net. We're down there holding everyone else up. They will not fall to the bottom because we're holding them up. We're sustaining the illusion that America is that place. And it is an illusion because we exist here. Well, you don't want to believe it's an illusion? Like I said before, you can go to every major city. Every city has a major black population in this country, and you will see those third world conditions. You will see them in Las Vegas. You will see them in California. You will see them in San Francisco. You will see them in Las Vegas. You will see them in Cleveland. You will see them in Detroit, Philadelphia. You will talk about Louisiana. Every city in Louisiana, I've been through there, it's scary. And Mississippi is even worse. And so you're talking about I just read an article the other day about your hometown of Atlanta and that bifurcation of black success and black poverty. It's everywhere in this country. You will see this. Yeah. And it's sickening to me because nobody talks about it. Like you said, they'll talk about the conditions of the immigrants coming into the country. They'll talk about people in other countries, but they will never mention us because they don't want to talk about that because we exist for a purpose. We exist to keep black men are in jail to keep white men out. Ooh. Let me tell you that right now. That's what that's about.
But not just white women, everybody, like everybody out. We gotta make them.
To keep everybody out, but particularly white men, because when I was in school, I would see white men do all kinds of crazy stuff, and there was never the threat of going to jail for them. I would see them, as like Chappelle said in that joke. It was hilarious to me when he said how he'd hang out with his white friend because his white friend could do anything. That's not a joke. I used to hang out with white people, and they were in college, and they would literally curse those police out. They did not respect them because that's their dumb cousin. That's their dumb cousin that couldn't get to college, who got a job as a policeman, and so they look at him like, yeah, I don't have to do that. They're drunk. They would be drunk cursing police officers out because they're college students, and he's a cop, and he knows he can't do anything because they're white. They have social capital. They may know somebody to make that phone call to get them in trouble. So we, on the other hand, we're fair game. If we spit on the sidewalk, there's potential for you to go to jail. So this country has unfortunately been using us as this safety latch for all this time. And now the safety latch is saying, wait a minute, I don't want to be there anymore. That's very dangerous. That's the reason Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and all the rest of them are talking the way they're talking, because they know they cannot take away that firewall from third world poverty conditions. They can't take that away from the rest of America. It is a needed firewall for them to sustain the illusion of what this country is. It is a needed firewall for them to say, well, we're not going to have all these programs like in Europe. We're not going to have, guaranteed medical. We're not going to have a certain level of existence in this country because we don't really need that in America. We're better than those people because unspoken is that we have a firewall. We have a firewall of poverty that we've given to these black people, and we've let them stay there in that firewall. What you said, we're the cast, we're the untouchables. We're the people that do the work nobody else wants to do. I see it here, I see it everywhere. We do the work nobody wants to do. We occupy the unemployment roles. We occupy the worst parts of town that can't really be sustained, and we're the people they use for gentrification, because as soon as we show up, well, that area is destined for gentrification by the definition of how they run it. All these things are in place, and the thing is, I wish there was some way, and I'm going to try it my own way. I'm going to figure something out here to impart some of this information about the historical information, the recent history. I'm not talking about ancient history. I'm not talking because people, their eyes glaze over. They go, oh, I don't want to hear about all that. But the thing is, there's the recent history. There's the recent history that happened, like I said, to my parents, my grandparents. There's very recent history when we had the illusion of actually getting past that line. There was a time, and the strivers kill me with this because it's in all those strivers out there. If anyone listening out, it's insulting. It's insulting to my parents. It's insulting to it's insulting to the ancestors to sit here like you're the first person that ever thought about starting a business. That is such an insult. That is the worst racist insult that you can ever put down. There are people, and there are black people in the past, the recent past. There are people. There was a guy in Ohio who manufactured cars. There are pictures of him with Henry Ford. Henry Ford came to Ohio to learn some of the techniques he was using to manufacture cars in Ohio back when Henry Ford was Henry Ford. And we're talking about this ridiculous stuff like, oh, all we got to do is do this and do that. Where is that car? Where is that family now? Where is that car making family now? It did not carry on. It was impossible for them to sustain because they did not have the resources to sustain.
Or not only that, Carl, let me just interrupt you for 1 second. Not only just the resources, you don't have any protection of your intellectual capital. So you invent something and some white person just come take it and walk off with it. You invented it, but there's no protection.
We had when I was back in Ohio, there was an entire museum of African American history. It's in Ohio, up there near Cleveland, and they talk about that. They have all these inventions that black people made, and each one of those stories ends the same way. It ends with somebody like Ford or Edison or some other big wheeler dealer basically taking their invention or their idea and monetizing it without giving them any money. And these guys, most of them died destitute. Some of them, went insane. A lot of them just faded away, and nobody even knows what happened to them. This is the fact of life. This is what happened to us. This is what's been happening to us for hundreds of years. And the thing is, we need to stop talking about this other crap, but we need to deal with that. We need to deal with the fact that this has been our existence in this country for hundreds of years. There is no study, there is no research, there is no discussion. I'm tired of that. Like the other caller said, Jews don't discuss this. Jewish people ask America to give them stuff, and America did nothing to them. They're asking for reparations for Germany's crimes against them. Well, are you crazy? Are you serious? I mean, I don't have a right when I have direct malfeasance that's been performed against my family. Direct stuff that was done. Things I can point to and say, well, this is what happened. It only happened because they were black. And you say, oh, well, forget that. Get over. Walk it off. Walk it off? How do you walk that off? How do you walk off segregated
with schools? A limp. You walk it off. That's all.
What was that?
I said with a limp. That's how you walk it off.
Yeah, you're not going to walk away with a limp. They took the whole leg. You bled out.
Yep.
That's the whole thing. I mean, you bled. I know people who own property. They got to take it away from them. People that have farms, they got to take it away from them. Family land. There's a famous story. I'll leave you with this. There's a famous story. When I was down in Tuskegee visiting a friend of mine, there's a famous story down there with Lionel Richie of the Commodores. I don't know if people remember that old group, the Commodores.
I remember.
Lionel Richie.
And I remember Lionel after the Commodores.
I know you do. Lionel Richie, I don't know if the story is true, but I've heard it from several people. Lionel Richie, of course, became a Commodore, got that capital. All his life, he had heard about how this land had been taken from his family. Once he had the money, through his being a unicorn, because he was a music star, he got a lawyer, went down there and got that land back. Now, see, we don't have the resources to do that. If we had the resources to do that, we could claim back that money. But the fact of the matter is, we don't have those resources to make those claims on that money. We don't have the social capital. We don't have the economic capital to make this right. But what we do have is we have us. We have bodies. We have our spirit and our mind, and if we can get back our mind, because we got our spirit and our soul, we just need to get our mind back. If we get our mind back, we can make this happen. Because I refuse to believe that the universe is sitting here against us on this. I refuse to believe that there's no way through this. I refuse to believe you can play the games. When strivers talk that crap, you're talking about playing a game with the man who owns the game. How you gonna do that? You got to come in there and bust in there and you got to get a piece of that game. You got to walk in there and claim a piece of that game. You got to say, hey, I allowed you to build this game. This is you. You have these big agricultural farms because they were built on our backs. I have people who created I have people down there in Georgia and in West. I have people in Georgia and Tennessee who literally the blood of my ancestors created those farms. They're huge agricultural farms down there, tobacco and agriculture. Okay, they got stuff with names on it. My family name on these buildings and stuff. My family's name, because of the blood of the slave owner, the enslaver, and the blood of the slave is mixed up in me, so I claim some of that. I tell my kids all the time, that's ours too. We don't get it because they won't give it to us, but that's stolen from us. Our family built that. Yeah, they own it, but our family built that. And most of the people here who came up through it, most of ADOS who came up in here had the same claims because we were here so long and our labor was free for all that time and that blood was free for all that time that is ours. Those businesses, those banks,
I'm gonna let you have the last word, but I just want to say something to what you just said, Carla, and then I'm gonna let you have the last word before we go out of here. What you're saying is that what you're saying though too is this: if these companies were built with slave labor, what we really have is a bunch of companies that shouldn't even exist, a bunch of capital that shouldn't even exist, right? You are really an illegal company. You shouldn't exist. You're not supposed to be here because of how you got here. And I'm gonna let you have the last word, Carl, as we go out to the midnight hour.
Yeah, you're right. I've been talking too long. You are absolutely right.
Good. You was good. You was great. You always a good call.
Those companies should not exist. Those companies should not exist. You're absolutely right because they've been built on blood. That's blood money right there. And I think it was Randall Robinson who talked about that when he talked about the debt, the thing that needed to be paid, and how the price was so high that even when you give us what we quote unquote deserve, it's still really not enough. Yeah. It's like the Jews. I love that. We need that part of the Jewish thing we need to take. There are certain parts of this thing we need to take from the Asians, from the Jews. We can't take it all because we're not directly like them. But the fact that the Jews are never satisfied, I love that about them. That they're like, no, this wrong was done to me and mine. This wrong was done to me and mine, and you're going to continue to pay for this. And you know what? We need some of that instead of this forgive and forget. That's the one thing I did not like.
They say never forget. Never forget. And I agree. Never forget.
Never forget. Exactly. Never forget and barely forgive. Because the thing is, how can you forgive that? How can you forgive that debt? How can you forgive that? That's death.
Well, the thing is, you can't forgive it until somebody's. The only way you get into when you get into forgiveness, people forget that there's supposed to be some action accompanying it, right? If people are actively and not just one time. That's why I always say reparations is just like oppression. Our oppression has been and is a multi-generational project. Our freedom and liberation has to be a multi-generational project. This is not something where you just cut a check and that's it and we finish. No, we are your American project now. Keeping us safe, making us owners. Undoing what you did has to be the American focus and the American project. Now, when you're on that page, then we can get into the mode of talking about forgiveness and how we're going to become one country. But that's the only way you get me there. You can't get me there without having done the work of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't something I just give you by how I feel. You have to do something as an action that elicits that from me.
That's right. You know what? And on that, you just dropped the mic, so I'm going to let you go.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate it.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, fam. I appreciate it. Always a great call. Woo, that brother was killing it. I appreciate it. That's a great. I'm gonna end on that, fam, because that's just a great call to end on. Sometimes somebody call and they just knock it out the park. Ain't nothing else you can do but be like, you know what? It is midnight anyway. Everybody go to bed. That was a great call. He knocked it out the park. It is what it is. Before we go though, I just want to say there are the other brother asked about videos that you know what kinds of videos, which videos would be good to show people. There is. In terms of Antonio's video, he has a video called Antonio Moore, The Make-Believe Economics of America. You know, I was a guest on that show too. And then there was the book club, the MLK book club show that I did. Those are also good starting points. If you want to get people to like, what are you going to watch? What should we watch first? Add those into the mix as well. If you're going to try to get somebody started into like, okay, what do we do? What do we start? Add that in there. And do not forget the 30th, fam, which is coming up fast and quick and in a hurry. They were her property. We will be having a book club. We'll have a Monday show, a Wednesday show, and then we'll have a Thursday show where we discuss the book. Please do not forget that. Show up for that. Please, please, please. And I want to thank the mods as always for being here and putting in work. I want to thank everybody for showing up. We all doing what we do. And hit that like button. I'd appreciate it. If you want to donate, go to donatebrown.com, patreon.com/ycarnell. All of that good stuff. But hit the bell. If you haven't hit the bell to get notifications, I'd appreciate that. Hit subscribe if you haven't hit the subscribe button. Hit that like button before you head out of here. Just like hitting the light and turning it off. Oh, you can go to subscribetobrown.com and give me your email. I don't spam you. I don't bother you. None of that. But just go there for me. I would appreciate it, fam. And listen, finish your libation. Go to bed. And until next time, do what you do. Get your education. Be anchored in something. Don't let these people bother you. I know that a lot of stuff has been going on. They've been doxing and doing all kind of reprehensible, underhanded stuff. But let's support each other. Because we need to support each other in what we're doing in the mission. Even against people who are, they know not what they do. These people who are just doing all kind of stuff. And you're supposed to be on our team. And you're just doing stuff for somebody else who's a pimp. That don't make no sense. Anyway. Just support each other, be there for each other. We'll get through this like we get through everything else. But fam, please hit that like button. And, we about to get out of here. I appreciate it. We about to get out of here. And, don't play too hard. Go to sleep, go to bed. You be up too late anyway. All right, fam. Till next time.